I'm here today with Kari Nathan. Kari wrote an amazing chapter for our book. It's our second to last chapter. It's so well written. Just let me say that person up front, right? She talks about embracing embracing the unknown and overcoming the past. Like her chapter has been so eye-opening. She talks about agricultural engineering, which I'm like, oh my God, wow. It's so good to hear about that. Kari. Thank you for joining us today. And I just wanted you to help us understand a little bit more, like what is a day in the life of, like what do you do in your job?
Well, I have taken a career change and I'm now an educator.
Oh
So I
yeah.
actually teach STEM and engineering to a large school district in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
My campus pulls students from all five high schools. Each high school has about 4,000 students.
Mm-hmm.
So we have opportunities for a lot of students to come and join us here. Currently in the engineering program, where I am teaching technical drawing and using all kinds of new technology. So my students get the opportunity to use laser engravers, 3D printers. Um, the technology that we've bought for our program is actually better than a lot of industry.
Oh.
And it gives our students the opportunity to get their hands on it even before some college students do. My industry partners even come to me and ask for help making prototypes because our equipment can make more precise or better heat tolerant or meet their specifications better. So I'm quite excited to be able to offer that opportunity to my students. As far as women in STEM goes, my first career was with agricultural department, or actually agricultural industry. I worked for a large tractor company. For me, I grew up with mostly guys, small town. I was the only girl in my calculus class in high school, the
Yeah.
only girl in my major at college. And it was never a bother to me. It was never awkward, except for the people that made it awkward, I guess. I had a
Mm.
professor that couldn't look me in the eye. I did a research project for him. Great guy, brilliant man, has daughters, didn't have a problem with women, but just he could never look me in the eye. And it was kind of awkward at times because he would talk to me and he would always be looking up in the corner. But he would do that talking to people up in the corner. And I think that's part of engineering is that there's a lot of us that are a little bit awkward
Yes, yes,
socially.
totally.
Has nothing to do with gender or
No,
anything
no.
else. It's just awkward,
Yep.
which I feel like I'm an odd combination. I'm very introverted, but I can fake the extroverted enough that I get along with engineers really well. So for me, going into education has given me the opportunity to
Mm.
help steer students down a path that they might not look at because they don't have people at home or people in their
Mhm.
community or people that they look like going down that path. So
Yes.
for me, it's been really important to show students what their strengths are and then remind them that they can use those to move into a career path that they haven't even thought of.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And you are molding and shaping the future there, Kari. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Um, you did talk about something that was very interesting, but I'm gonna circle back to that in a little bit because I saw something that was so cool. Why did you write this chapter, Kari? Like, I know this is like a huge question, but why did you decide to write this chapter and help us to understand so much more? Because your chapter was in so much detail. I loved it.
Well, for me, um, I think I had to go through a lot of industry setbacks in a way or
Mm,
overcome obstacles.
yes.
And
Oh, yeah.
in my opinion, there's obstacles that don't need to be there.
Yes.
And I feel like as a teacher, I get the opportunity to help kids understand how to approach obstacles and overcome them.
Yeah.
But I also think that there's people that don't have that kind of support in their lives.
Yeah.
When I was approached by one of my counterparts about this book, I went back and forth on it.
Mhm.
Some of the stuff I included in the chapter is some hard things that I went through. And for me, it's hard to kind of reopen that wound in a way, but
Mm,
it's also important for me to realize or to maybe get it out there that you don't have to deal with some of this. It's been done before. There's other people.
yes.
You can reach out to people. One thing I try to instill in all my students is to find a mentor. And
Mm,
it doesn't have to be in the field of industry, but it's so important to have somebody that you can vocalize and discuss things with because awkward things that happen sometimes you don't realize if it's normal in the industry,
Yeah.
if it's something you need to take another look at. I mean, one of the things I think I mentioned was kind of a sexual harassment thing that
Hmm.
happened. And it was gross and it was
Yeah.
icky. And I worked with all older men. And it wasn't that I didn't think they would believe me or trust me. It was that I just didn't know the proper approach because it was kind of like a customer was doing it in a way. And
Hmm.
we ended up closing a tractor dealership over it
Yeah.
because it was just that icky of a situation. But those are the things that are hard to talk about, even in a
It is.
workplace, because you
Hmm.
don't want to be the person that's bringing up things that are going wrong. You don't want to be the squeaky wheel with
Hmm.
HR. And those are things that you have to understand where the boundaries are. And
Yes.
for me, it was hard to navigate because I didn't have anybody that I could reach out to. And I was one of the only women working in my industry when I first got out of college. So it took a while. And then, of course, there's the stigma that goes along with it because
Yes.
after I closed a tractor dealership, another tractor dealer was worried about me visiting him because he thought
Hmm.
I might be offended if he swore. And I thought, well, I went to college with all guys. I know
Yeah.
swear words. It's fine. I mean, don't get me wrong. Sometimes it's the right thing to do, right?
Yeah.
But it's that stigma that sometimes gets put together with these things. And I think for me as a teacher, I have great opportunity to impact many students and lots of cultural diversity. But my husband still works in the agriculture industry, and we still talk and work through how to get more people in his industry because it is a difficult industry to be
Yeah.
in. One of my favorite books I've read recently was Machiavelli for Women, and I did not know that book existed. And for me, I've been telling everybody that works in a dominant field, whether it's male or female, or a monocultural one that's trying to add diversity, it is a great book because not only does it kind of explain for the person that's feeling like they're a minority how to work in the workplace, it also gives hints on other people how to add more people and respect other people's differences and include them in their workplace. And for me as a teacher, that's something we just always do. But I know in the industries, there's some that are just really heavily one culture, one
Hmm.
gender, one, you know, set of skills. I mean, it could even be just one college.
Yeah.
And that's kind of stuff is the things that, mentors really help with, but
Hmm.
being able to reach out to people and put it out there what other people go through so you don't feel like you're stagnant or
Yeah.
alone. I mean, getting a bad grade the first semester of college, I thought, oh my God, I'm not smart enough to do this.
Hmm.
But I was still able to graduate in 3 years. And
Yeah.
I'm not a brilliant person. I know you've got plenty of people that wrote for this book that are brilliant. But I'm personally just feel like I'm a problem solver.
Hmm.
And so if somebody asks me to do something, I can figure it out.
Yeah.
So the idea of kind of taking the wind out of my sails with the bad grades and a professor that didn't turn in grades, it was really eye-opening. And from
Hmm.
there on, it's really changed my perspective because I thought if you weren't getting A's at college, you probably didn't need to
Yeah.
be there. And it turns out that, I mean, my calc-based physics class, the average grade on the final was like 38%.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Yeah, the guy taught astronauts, which was great, but that made me think, man, I'm not in the right place.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it rethinks that. So that's another reason I went into education was because I want people to look at education differently. My students are
Yeah.
taking a final today, and it's not a 100-point multiple choice test. It is documenting things that they've learned, things that they've overcome in the class, learning how to solve problems. They're documenting stuff that they already know how to do, solving problems. Because if I have an open book test with 200 questions on it, and they can use their notebook, what's the difference between that and showing that they have an organized engineering notebook with a table of
Yeah.
contents and with their sources in it? I'm just saving them time because they can
Hmm.
find it
Yeah.
if they've done it.
Hmm.
So
Definitely.
I kind of try to rethink the way we look at some of these things because
Yeah.
the stereotype of education is like, the little dot matrix tests where you'd
Yeah.
fill in 100 questions and a Scantron will mark whether they're right or wrong. And I don't think that's the best way to
No.
come up with creative students and creative workforce that we need for the future.
Oh yeah. And we need a creative workforce in the future because I saw something that they're 3D printing food now. So
Oh yeah,
yeah, and I'm like, oh,
it's crazy.
Kari could help with that. I would definitely want to taste test some of that, but
Yeah, yeah.
Oh gosh. Well, what would you say to other people just to, inspire them to stay in this field of STEM or For those who are thinking about should I enter the STEM field or should I do something else? What will you say to them to actually just stay in it or to join it?
Well, I have to tell you that everybody has a cell phone now. Everybody walks around with technology in their pocket. Everybody has a car that's really smart, will tell you
Mhm.
where to go. It helps you stay in the lanes. Everybody is in the STEM world now.
Oh yeah.
Everybody. We have no
Mhm.
choice. So if you want to embrace the future, I love STEM. I love teaching STEM because everything keeps changing. I've had an opportunity to teach everything from how to become an electrician and construction management to teaching biotechnology and now engineering. And every year there's new technology that comes out here. So if you can focus, regardless if you're in STEM or not, on the idea that change is going to happen and what can you do to be flexible with it, you're going to be successful. But
Oh,
technology changes so fast that if you focus, if you're using it, you can make a lot of money
mhm.
and feel a lot of pride and change the future
Oh yeah.
by going out there and getting involved in really cool things that you enjoy. I
Mhm.
love the idea that one of your contributors, Emma, is
Oh yeah.
studying in the biomedical field. She was one of my students, and some of her, like her freshman project, her professor told her it could be patentable, and
Mhm.
it wasn't something out there like 3D printing livers. Some
Mhm.
freshmen came up with these ideas that are just not fulfillable. Hers was something she could go to market with, and within a year.
Oh yeah.
um, the idea that students come up with these things. I had a student that redid a experiment at a university where they cleaned a spinach leaf down to the cellular level, and then they could use it for heart transplants. So they actually pumped blood through the veins of this spinach leaf in class. I couldn't do it. But the cool
Wow.
thing is that I can find this stuff and get
Mhm.
people all the equipment they need and the technology and mentors that they can do what they're brilliant at. So I think if students and people in general don't know what they're brilliant at, they probably haven't looked close enough to home because you're doing things
Yeah.
that you're probably really good at. I mean, video games is one of those things that people think have no impact on your future, but really the idea of drone pilots and remote
Mhm.
delivery and automated cars, all of that is STEM. All of it is.
Everything.
It's
Well,
here. We need to
yeah.
embrace it.
Yeah. Whether you like it or not. We
Yeah.
hope we hope
Well,
you like it
obviously,
though.
I love it, but I do think that, yeah, I think that our students and the future of education and the future of STEM is just going to grow exponentially.
Oh yeah.
So every field of industry, I think, is going to be touched by it. I
Oh.
mean, with my background in agriculture, I never would have guessed that there's going to be automated farm machinery running in fields without people in it. And
Mhm.
there's going to be, drone pilots going over, drones going over fields to do sensing for droughts, weeds, looking at production rates without having to go out there. So the technology is replacing people, but it's not replacing people that want to do a job. It's replacing
Mhm.
people that had jobs that they didn't want to do, hard jobs,
Yeah.
jobs you couldn't fill. So I think technology is, I mean, you're going to have to embrace it regardless what industry you go into in the future, because any field I can think of is going to have them in it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Kari, I know your students have your final today, but thank you so much for taking the time just to talk to us and to write this chapter and share with so much knowledge with us. Really appreciate it. Look out for the
Thank you.
book. The book is going to be available in December 2022. Kari's chapter is very, very interesting. So many great things in it. So be sure to read that chapter when you get the book. Kari, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. And thank you for putting this together.
Oh, yes, it was my pleasure. Bye.
Bye.